Jeremy Wise from NIFA, and I'm just listening to your meeting.
Okay, great.
All right, Jeremy, fine. We just
Sorry.
want to put you down on our,
We're taking attendance
here.
and
Not a problem. I'm happy to listen in.
we can begin because, we have a quorum. Jan is not gonna be able to make it tonight.
Okay,
All right, John, take it away.
all right. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes
I
as
make the motion to be approved the minutes.
second, please?
Oh, I had one correction. I'm sorry, Mr. Sardellis, Chairman. I have one, correction on the minutes
Okay,
that we caught today. I didn't want to confuse everyone by sending another document out. So there was just a typo, and we changed it in the second paragraph. You have the word basic, and it should be invasive. So I just wanted to point that out to the committee. So we would like a motion to strike the word basic, add the word invasive, and so it's invasive procedures.
Since I made the motion, I will repeat my, revise my motion with the correction of the minute that our general counsel had made. I'd like to make a motion again that the minute of the finance meeting of the should be accepted.
And I
thank you,
second.
Bobby. We have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'd like to vote on the minutes as submitted with the correction. Those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the minutes are unanimously approved. Thank you very much. Rich, why don't you take over from here?
Okay, thank you, John. If the committee would be okay with this, I've previously sent the May financials, and if anybody has questions, I'd be glad to answer them. I was going to focus on the June financials, if that's okay with you guys.
Chairman, I had the question, if I have your permission, so we can get to the June, but I have the question related to May.
Okay.
If you can go on the page number 4 of 18.
Can we bring those reports up? So-
May 4 of 8.
4 of 18.
Yeah, we're putting it
It's
up.
actually more like
Okay, good.
it's more like a complement number 4, page 4 of 18.
And this is the May financials, right, Bobby?
Yes, if you go to page 4.
Okay,
So I'm looking at it, which is showing it 85 million. If you go up and you can see it, actually, we're only looking at the half page on the screen. The total CARES grant payment through May 31st, 2020, 85.5 million.
yes,
So since I also read the June statement, so that means 2 of them, if you're looking at it, which I'm sure you're going to bring up to the committees, it is almost 121 million, between 85 plus that. And I am very happy. I like to congratulate not only the finance chair as well as the chair of the board, keeping the things going and working hard and try to stand up for our employees and for our hospital. But related to just a question I have, since Chairman, we had approved, the board had approved hazardous pay. My question is, did we made that payment or not yet to our employees?
No, not yet, Bobby. And the reason is this. The current legislation that the House passed, which was the HEROES Act in July, contained a provision that would have given the employees, well, contained a provision that related specifically to hazard pay. So
Okay.
we decided to wait until that legislation was either passed or modified that either included it or it didn't. It looks like right now that that may not be included. If it's not, then we will go forward and do hazard pay based from CARES Act money.
Thank
But
you
we
very
want to-
much.
But we
Thank you
want
very
to
much.
wait because
Thank you.
the provisions in the HEROES Act would actually have gotten the employees more money than we would be able to pay out of the CARES Act. So we wanted to wait to make sure that was either passed or not passed before we issued money.
Thank you so much, Chairman. I greatly appreciate, as long as my concern is so we don't forget them or we lost them in a
Oh, yeah.
shuffle.
No.
Thank you so much clarifying. Can we go to the page 5 of 18, please? Where we say revenue under, no, 5 of 18.
Yeah, it's the next page after that one, the one you just throwing it. No, go back.
Right to that? This?
No, one
Nope.
before. No, the other way, the other way. One more. Okay,
So I'm looking at the bottom of the page where you have, case mix index. I
Yeah.
think that's great. Even though I'm looking at it, our volume was less because we took care of the most difficult patients and the cases. So we have a better and higher pay. Am I right or wrong?
yes, you're right.
And I like to congratulate Dr. Bhutan and his staff and all the doctors and nurses for, he's saying it very clearly, taking care of the difficult patients. And I'm very proud of you, and I'm glad to join with my board. And I want to bring to the chairman's attention, even though you already know it, I think we should commend them for their good work, taking care of the difficult patients.
I know, it's only duly noted, we'll do that, Bobby.
Thank you, sir. And I think I'm pretty good on that. And only thing I want to say it, the low volume and higher reimbursement, which we have, and hopefully we will continue under the leadership of Dr. Bhutan and all other staff working hard and keep the pressure on for the best interest of the hospital. And thank you for your leadership. I don't have a question related to the mail. And if somebody don't have a question, I'd be happy to make a motion that want to be accepted.
I think we want to go to June first, right?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Flaherty, if we could just touch on June for a few minutes. And maybe what I'll do, I'll start where you started on page 4 of 18 on June.
Yes, I have that in front of me, yes.
Okay, that shows, yeah, that page right there. That shows what we received to date, like you said. The CARES grant revenue is at 121 million. And the difference from what we just talked about in May is that June 12th, 35 million that we received. Please note that the hospital has not spent any of that money. It's still, we've attributed revenue to it, and we've attributed COVID-related expense that will allow us to retain that money, but it's all been segregated and we haven't spent it. We still have it in cash.
Thank you so much for giving the update to us as a board and especially to the chairman. This is something I always had asked, be very honest with the board, and I'm glad you are. And thank you, the chairman, again for his leadership. And I appreciate that. One thing I must have read both statements. That's all I knew.
Okay. Okay. Let me just point out a couple things on page 8, which is.
No, I have a question to number page 5.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Chairman, may I have your permission if you don't mind?
Go right ahead, Bobby.
Thank you, sir. So looking on the revenue again, it look like even though our case mix index was better in June, and that means it's increase of revenue. Am I right, Mr. Ring?
Yes.
Okay, now, my question, only one question. So if we had angioplasty, that will make us, our cases makes better and better pay. Am I right or wrong?
Yes, the invasive cardiology is better than diagnostic cardiology, yes.
Thank you, sir. I have no more question on this.
Okay, let me just point out, on the one for June, since we're on it, the case mix or the sheet that looks like this,
What page?
we'll call it up on the screen. It's the analysis of discharges and case mix for the month of June. The first three lines that are barred in color.
Oh, one second, let me pull that. I have that. I did specifically pull that list.
It's up on the screen, Bobby.
I see it, but I had it also. I print it out for myself.
What we had in what we went through in April and then in May, our case mix went up to 1.58, and then it dropped down in May to 1.28, and we were expecting a further drop down because those indexes were up because of the treatment of COVID patients. And when somebody's on a vent, the case mix is relatively high. What we anticipated was that in June, the case mix would drop down further because we had a lot less COVID patients. However, what we did see is the pent-up demand for, as you see it there, orthopedics and surgical cases, that we saw a big uptick in that, and the highlighted boxes show the percentage in the month of in the month of June compared to the average that we saw January through May. Orthopedics was 176% of that average. Surgery was 167, and the other piece that we saw was an uptick in trauma, probably because people were coming out of their houses, and between MVAs and motor vehicle accidents and other traumas, we saw an uptick in that as well. But you can see that the case mix on those, where we budget for an average of 0.92, the case mix on those cases, like orthopedics, is 1.93. That's more than double what we normally get of about 10,800 per discharge. We probably got close to 20,000 per orthopedic case. And likewise with surgery, a little less than that, and trauma even more than the surgeries. So that's why I wanted to point out, June was a good month because the case mix was up. Our volumes were down because people didn't want to come to hospitals. They're still afraid of COVID. But what you'll see, and I guess the other piece that I'd point out, when you go to the June statement on page 8 of 18, that's the consolidated P&L.
Yeah, I see that.
Next.
So Rich, the normal case mix index is 0.91 or 2? Is that what it is normally?
0.92, yeah.
0.92. So that's a significant jump, and that has a multiplier effect, right? And that's why we can have lower volume but higher actual revenue.
Yes,
Correct.
yes.
Rich, since you was chairman, may I ask question since he's on a loose sheet?
Of course.
Actually, I have more related that question to our chairman Detour. So on that loose sheet where he says Nassau Healthcare Corporation impact of the COVID-19 crisis 2019 through June 30th, is the region be seeing it 148,176,429. It started with 121 million plus 26 million. Is Chairman Detour, this is the something that you originally had introduced before, saying that something we received related to the COVID?
No, I'm sorry, I lost where you were.
Bobby, which page? What page are you on?
Okay, Chairman, it's not the page, it's a loose page on the end.
Oh, okay, that's the impact of COVID.
Because I remember Chairman Detour had, before you became, took John's place, and he had brought up to our attention. I want to make sure this is the same money that chairman had spoken about. That's exactly the page.
Yeah.
And you see where we have a 26,130,000. And the
Down
chairman was very specific about the Medicare. That's why it stands out, and I'm trying to ask for a clarification.
Yeah, the 121 is the CARE Act grant. The 26 million is the Medicare advances.
Yeah, I got it. That's all I wanted to make sure. This is
Yeah.
the same thing that chairman had spoken about.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Thank you, chairman. Thank you.
Okay, since we're on this page, I just like to point out, if you look at this page, you see the impact of the volume over the course of the crisis. If you just scroll down a little bit, you'll see the months that we're talking about. Yeah.
Yes.
Over the course of March through June, we've seen volumes drop in overall patient services, not only at NUMIC on the discharges and on the psych days, but also on the clinics and the ED and the ambulatory surgery. We also saw a drop in faculty practice and a drop off in A. Holly Patterson. Those impacts, and there's a second sheet to it, but I won't belabor it at this point. That had an impact on us of $22 million in lower revenue than we would have seen if we were at budget. However, it's all been recouped through the more intense care that we've provided cases, patients, COVID patients, and now in June, what we just talked about with orthopedic surgery and trauma cases. So when you look at that net impact, we dropped $22 million in volume. We received $21 million in better reimbursement for a higher case mix because we treated more sick patients that were more sick than we normally would have seen. So what you see there is on that, for that period, we were only down about $1.2 million or $1.3 million in revenue.
I see that.
The rest of the impact that you see there, we showed what we've recognized in CARES Act revenue. And that's through we have them reflected in each of the monthly financials. We've already recognized $17 million in CARES Act. That's a combination of COVID-related expenses that we've recognized at 75% using the FEMA guidelines. And then more recently in May and June, we recognized lost revenue because in March and April, the revenue was so high because of case mix to COVID that we couldn't recognize any lost revenue. But in May and June, we recognized additional lost revenue for the total of that 17.1. So the total revenue impact is actually positive by almost $16 million. And the only other thing I'd point out that when you look at June, our expenses are still below budget by 4.7 million.
Since, Chairman, may I ask a question here, if you don't mind?
I think he's talking to you.
To me?
Yeah.
Or John? I'm not sure. Me?
Thank you, Chairman. The question is to Rich is that 26,130,000, which was a Medicare PIP advance. Did we spend any money out of it or not yet, or is still in our banks?
We have not spent anything, but CMS has said they were going to start recouping all of that money, starting with our next what we call PIP check or periodic interim payment check. We get about $3,058,000 every other week. And what CMS...
My question is only, and the region I'm asking question because when we received this money, I specifically was asking our chairman, and he was very straight how this things work. I think we should take every advantage, whatever is in our legally terms, I should use the word, we are allowed to. So instead of we spending any other money, if there is any Medicare money that we can spend, we should not touch the other money. We should try to see how we can benefit, because the chairman said that time, otherwise we had to return this money if it's not used. So I want you, and I humbly requesting other board members to hopefully to pay attention to that one. So we should not have that money not using and using something else. If we can, we should before we had to return anything.
Okay, the only issue that came up, Medicare or CMS has indicated to every hospital in the country that they're going to recoup the entire advance over the course of starting at 120 days from when we received it, which would be the middle of August. Our next PIP check is the next week. And the fact that we get 3 million every other week, they will recoup this at a rate of 3 million every other week. And then what we'll do is we'll use that in place of it. Because
Yeah, but that's what I'm asking. If we can use that to the maximum what we allowed, we should. So we should not be deprive ourselves from that.
yeah, no, this one was an advance and we couldn't use it. The other 121 million is a CARES Act grant that if we don't.
I understand.
Yeah, so we have to return this according to Medicare rules.
Thank you very much.
Okay. The only other thing I'd point out here is that we summarized what we've spent in COVID for labor and fringe of 4.4 million, and then other personal services of 8.5 million for a total of 12.9. And we've recognized the revenue related to that at the 75%.
I can't say enough thank you. The first time, as long as I can remember, I'm on the board. First time, I don't have no criticism, but only compliment to the leadership, and especially Dr. Bhutan and Megan, providing the information so upfront and helping the board member to make the right decision. I just can't say enough thank you.
Okay, Rich, so where do you want to go from here?
The only other thing I'd point out is when you look at the June year to date, our expenses are like 4 million better than what we budgeted. And that's a result of, to a point, or the downturn in volume that we saw, but it's also redeploying our nurses and our clinicians during the COVID crisis so that we didn't hire people, but rather redeployed people from the health centers and also people that were in our education and non-patient related treatment areas to treatment areas. So that limited the amount of labor expense that we incurred, benefiting at this point. Salary and fringe benefit, let me just point it out, is under budget by $12.6 million through June. And when you take out the additional 4.4 that we spent on COVID, that brings it up to over $17 million that were favorable in labor. Let me stop there and I'll just ask if there's any questions otherwise.
Just on that patient service revenue.
Yeah.
Is any of the money from COVID in that line?
No, it's all on the federal and state aid line. You see
Oh, that's where you're putting it?
yeah, the
Okay.
17.3.
If you're not putting it, that, okay. But so that money though, that we did get and applied or allocated from the COVID, from the CARES Act,
Right,
is in the statement.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we've recognized it as revenue, but we have not spent it in cash.
Okay.
Rich, when it comes to labor costs, it's my understanding that a lot of senior nurses are starting to retire, or maybe that's Dr. Bhutan's question. Are we seeing an uptick in retirement amongst the RN population?
Yes. They were afraid of COVID, and they took the time to retire.
All right, Rich, proceed.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions on the May and June financials? Because I can stop there. I hit the highlights of what we're seeing so far.
I think it's okay. The only one thing I do want to point out, just so everybody's clear, that we have taken account of all the federal money as of the end of June, but before pension expenses and OPEB, we have a loss of about $28 million, right?
Yes, yes,
So we're 13 million ahead of where we thought we'd be,
yes, yes,
but we still have a $28 million loss.
yes.
Rich, what can you offer us about cash flow and the projected cash flow?
In general, our collections have been really good because of the case mix. All the money that we received in CARES and in the PIP advance, we did not use. We've been paying our bills as usual. Alvarez and Marcel are looking at different scenarios of the cash flow and tweaking that in what-if scenarios. I've been working with them on that, of all the different scenarios that they've been asked to give. And I think they're going to present a number of various cash flows. So I think I asked the committee to wait for that to see what they're going to present.
That'll be part, John, that's going to be one of the sections of their presentation at the board meeting next week.
Oh, great. That's good, Bob. Thank you.
Yeah.
Chairman, if we don't have anything else to discuss with Rich, I would like to make a motion to accept the June statement as well. And before I leave, I want to make sure I vote for it, if you don't mind.
Motion for May and June. You're doing one motion.
Okay, let me make a motion to accept May and June financial statement provided to us today. And I make a motion to be accepted.
Second? Any second? I'll second it, John. Any discussion? If not, let's take a vote. Or-
John, I don't think you can second it since you're not a voting member.
Mr. Detour seconded it. Mr. Detour did it. I have
I
it.
second it.
Yeah, you're right, Bobby.
Thank you, sir.
Wayland, did you second it?
Bob Detour did second it.
Okay, Bob did. Okay, fine. So, so we take a vote as to the motion. Those in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Any opposed?
That's it.
Any abstains? Majority carries by unanimously.
Thank you. Chairman, before I leave, I take your permission. I just want to say thank you to our board member, Bill and Hobbs. Joined me on the day we had donated our kiosk of temperature to our hospital, which Nargis Dutt Foundation, Friends for Good Health, and Megan Rand Smith, Dr. Buchan, and Dr. Papia had joined me into that venture, and I appreciated it. Our board member to join me the day we donated to our hospital and nursing home the kiosk for temperature testing kiosk.
Thank you. I was glad to be able to be a part of it. Thank you.
There's one more item on the agenda, Bobby, if you want to.
2 minutes.
I need you here for the vote because you'll break.
Okay.
Yeah. The last item on the agenda is to ask the committee to recommend to the full board next week extending the remarketing and the letters of credit on our long-term debt. Previously, I sent everybody on the committee what we were doing with NYFA and with the county. The safest, cheapest, and easiest way to do this was to stay with Bank of America. What's up on the screen is the canvassing of the financial community by PFM, and you can see on that Bank of America Merrill Lynch, BAML, the first one, they have the existing $180 million of letters of credit, and they have the remarketing agreement. They will extend that for another year while we try to fix out our debt with a fixed rate bonds. When PFM reviewed that with all of the banks that you see on the screen.
Who review them?
PFM are financial advisors.
Who are they?
We've been using them as our financial advisors. The county uses them as financial advisors.
We cannot use the same people unless it's a conflict of interest.
Oh, no, we can use them, but you know what? Wait. Can you just explain the backdrop of this related to the debt, the long-term debt, and what it means? Let him put this in context for you, Bobby, and then I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have variable rate demand bonds right now. And those bonds can be put by all the bondholders on demand.
And this is for the 170.
You know, $172 million of bonds that we have right now.
Correct. I'm aware of that.
In order for that to work in an orderly market, we have to have these vehicles of letters of credit that the bank, if somebody puts a bond back for redemption, we have to give them their money immediately.
Correct.
And Bank of America over the last year has been what we call a remarketing agent. They take those bonds back and they remarket to the resellers.
Okay, I got it, Chairman. Thank you. So if anybody have no question, before I leave, I like to make a motion to accept that, and so we can move on.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? If not, those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thanks, Bobby.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm so sorry if I'm rushing, but God bless you. Have a good evening.
It's approved unanimously.
Thank you.
I assume that's the order of business for today, and I can entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Just 1 second.
Yeah, there's one last thing.
Oh, yeah.
There's a handout of the funds that we received in the CARE Act. And all we wanted to do is point out what we received, what we've recognized in the financial statement so far, and how we plan to spend that money. Because to the point that Mr. Clottey just made, if we don't spend it, we have to give it back. So this handout, what it shows is what we've received. We've received $121 million. We've recognized the use of those funds that entitles us to keep it. As it points out there, COVID-related expenditures of 12.4 from March, April, May, and June. We've recognized lost revenue of an additional 7.4 in May and June. So we have a remaining $100 million left that we can spend. And we just wanted to point out in discussions through with all of management, here's the general categories that the planned spending will be of that $100 million over the remaining course of this year and probably into early next year. The first one is modifying facilities for COVID-related safety issues. This is everything from signage to negative pressure rooms, to barriers that we have to put up in between patients. The second one is the expansion of clinic hours if needed for social distancing. As you know, we do about 300,000 clinic visits a year. They've been down pretty significantly this year because of COVID as it was, but also in rebounding back, we can't see the same amount of patients because we can't have them in a waiting room waiting shoulder to shoulder. We're gonna have to modify our Allscripts software for our electronic health record to have telehealth effective so that we can do telehealth in a coordinated way. And then the remaining pieces are the required staff testing, primarily right now at AHP, where for the last 2 months, they had to be tested twice a week, all 400 of our staff, twice a week for the whole month. And that was 2 months. Now it's down to once a week. And then the remaining is any future lost revenue we see over the next couple of months or couple of months. And if there's a second surge in the crisis. That's general terms of what we see using that $100 million for.
Rich, the modification of the EHR for telehealth, that's an eligible expense for the funds?
Yeah, 'cause that's COVID related.
Yeah. Have we put
Oh,
any
that's
dollars
great.
in these things? Any dollar amounts to any of these
No.
things?
No, not yet.
Right, I have a question. So with the plan use of those funds, is there an estimate on like what the cost of some of this would be?
Not at this point. We haven't gotten that far. But the only thing that we have been doing, and I will say that the staff testing at AHP is costing us, and you'll see it in the financials, when you look at AHP for for June, there's 2 months worth of testing in there that's worth about $600,000. That's what it's cost us. That's the only one we can really quantify at this point. We are
Is there any-
identifying the pieces of the EHR that we'll have to purchase in order to have the telehealth, in an effective way.
Is there any date that this money has to be spent by, Rich?
Yes, the guidance that has just come out is that it has to be spent by July 31 of 2021.
Right.
So we have to, that's the last date. As of now, unless we have a surge, unless the government declares a pandemic expansion, but right now it's July 31, 2021.
Okay. Anything else that we need to discuss?
No. No.
Okay. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second,
Second. Thank you all, and have a pleasant day.
all right, thank you.
Thanks, everybody.